A lot of things happening in the world of professional wrestling, and seemingly in the last couple of days, one of the reasons we're recording this update, a lot happening around the world of CM Punk and AEW. Once again, here we go again. I guess it starts with a report yesterday came out from Fightful Select, I believe it was Sean Ross Sapp, reporting that CM Punk has been in talks with AEW. He's eager to come back to AEW. They're trying to get him to sit down with Chris Jericho to hash things out. And he's willing to do business with whoever. The Bucks, Omega. I don't know about Jericho, we'll see. But the Bucks and Omega and the people that you think he would have a natural conflict with because of everything that happened behind the scenes. So why don't we start with that? The report that seemingly a Punk return is imminent, with some reports saying that it's coming up at an upcoming AEW show in Chicago. What are your thoughts on all this coming out?
Well, but this is not really, when you think about it, new news, because we've heard a few times that there's been conversations between Tony Khan and CM Punk. And every time we hear that, then the propaganda arm of the EVPs out there in Campbell by the Sea, California, does anybody, even the impartial observers now, let's say, does anybody not think that Uncle Dave is the Jerry Mahoney to the EVP's Paul Winchell? And Google it, kids. It's going to be hilarious. But
he's the living point lookout, Paul Winchell.
And that's the thing, is that every time that there is some public indication, some report that Tony and CM Punk had a long talk, or that this is coming closer to fruition, then immediately something comes out from Uncle Dave's side on behalf of the EVPs that is meant to either inflame Punk to defend himself, and rightfully so, like he did a week or two ago when the fucking plumber was running his pie hole, or, as we talked about a few weeks ago, they start having a preemptive strike by putting out, well, as long as Punk's willing to apologize for what? Not suing Tony Khan and his company under the fucking courthouse? Is that what he has to apologize for? Here's a guy who probably, because he's proud, doesn't want to go out of the wrestling business like this, where because of the children he worked with, people think he's a cancer because he's not one that runs his mouth in public. All the other fucking side does that. So they've buried him, and when he defends himself, people are saying, oh, see there? You can't fucking trust Punk. He's going to, get mad and cause an issue. Yeah, he's going to get mad when people are lying about him. So every time that it looks like that Tony has done the right thing, because Punk is not wanting to fucking leave wrestling like that, with that kind of reputation, but also, I think what everybody overlooks is Punk is getting a check every week or every 2 weeks, whatever their pay cycle is, for what amounts to more than 7 figures a year, right? Or in the 7 figures a year, to do nothing, to sit at home. He had an injury that's been 7 months ago. I bet you he's probably okay by now. But now it comes down to the fucking cowardly, gutless, ballless. If you took all 6 of the balls that the EVPs allegedly possess and rolled them at a fucking drinking straw, it looked like 6 kernels of corn rolling into a storm drain. They're so scared he's going to beat them up again, or he's going to fucking show them up, or he's going to outdraw them or outwork them, or whatever they're so scared about him. Every time it looks like there's movement for Tony Khan to get some return on his investment of 7 figures a year, sending this guy a check to sit at home because his fucking EVPs are butthurt, then something gets out to stir things up and muddy the water and screw up Tony Khan's business and his dealings. He's trying to make a deal to either get some value for the fucking money that he's spending, or to get some fucking closure with the open-ended situation he's got with Punk. He's under contract. He has to pay him, play him, or cut him. And this guy's willing to be a professional, come back and earn his money. And the other guys are running from him like their heads are on fire. Because they're afraid either he's going to beat them up for real or he's going to beat them up in the fucking ratings. So it shouldn't surprise anybody by now that every time it looks like this might be worked out to AEW's benefit, Tony Khan's benefit, how would you like, Brian, to be writing a check to somebody for over $1 million a year and then just them sit home and cash it when it comes in the mail? When they're willing to come back and fulfill their part of the bargain, but Pansy Dan and his fucking two friends are scared. They're scared. You know what? As Ernie Ladd used to say, if you're scared, say you're scared. If you're a mouse, squeak.
Right. And the other thing is, if you're Tony Khan, you can't be happy that every time you think you have a compromise and a solution, something happens that seems to poison the well.
But he can't be too unhappy because he won't blister and discipline the people that are causing it.
Look, at the very end, if you're someone in the Bucks camp who thinks it's all Punk's fault, and if you're someone who's in the Punk camp and you think it's all the Bucks and Omega's fault, you're all wrong. It's Tony Khan's fault.
Yeah.
That it got to this point and that it's still happening. He still hasn't been able to stop this. This is still happening.
He can't say, you blithering simpletons, I'm paying this guy a fortune. He said he'll work with you. You don't want to work with him? Fuck you. I won't pay you anymore. Because he drew me more money than you ever have.
That's what I want to talk to you about. The idea that Punk is willing to work with whoever it may be that's best for, I hate to use the term because it's such a cliche now, best for business. Whether it's Omega, whether it's the Bucks, whatever it may be. We're hearing that the feeling may not necessarily be reciprocated from the other side. So to look at it from the other side, if the Bucks and Omega simply refuse to work with CM Punk, should that be said? Instead of this constant back and forth, he's willing to do this, they don't know if they want to. Like, it kind of has to be settled.
Well,
and do you think, is there any problem with that, with someone saying they don't want to work with someone else? Again, they stormed into his locker room before he threw the first punch. But is there a problem with a wrestler saying, I don't want to work, or multiple wrestlers in this case, 3 guys, potentially saying, I don't want to work with this guy?
Okay, there are a number of reasons, and especially a main event wrestler should be taken seriously when they say, I don't want to work with somebody. Whether it was when Steve Austin didn't want to work with Brock Lesnar because they were fucking with Steve and he knew it, but also he knew that Steve Austin versus Brock Lesnar is a pay-per-view match. We're not doing it on free Raw. And he went home and he said, since then, he handled it wrong. He should have just gone home. He wasn't going to do the match, but he should have handled it differently. But that's an example of a guy saying, I won't work with somebody for the right reason. You're giving it away. We could all make money with this. I don't believe in it. Or conversely, if you've got when Brock Lesnar just said, yeah, fuck you, I'll work with Bray Wyatt. He's, what's that going to do to my career? And he's the shits. That's another good, legitimate reason, because sometimes a guy might say that and it might not be true. In this case, it was true. It would have probably damaged Brock's reputation to work with Bray Wyatt. So he said no. That's a legitimate reason for a top guy to turn something down. And there's also a top guy that somebody might say, well, we want you to work with, Johnny Dipshit and put him over in 5 minutes. And then it's the old, that don't work for me, brother, because if you're a big star and it's a nobody, whatever, that's a palatable reason. But examine this. They're in the wrestling business to make money. People have fucking fights and have since the dawn of fucking time in wrestling and in all sports. Football players, basketball players, you see it all at the bench clearing in baseball. What happens when those guys that were on the opposite sides of that bench clearer end up on the same team? They still going to fight, or are they going to work together? One guy's going to fucking hit the ball, the other guy's going to catch it, whatever the case, because that's their job. And it doesn't, there's no danger that the one guy's going to take a bat and finish the job from 5 years beforehand when they were on different teams. They're professionals. They had a fucking fight because they're athletes. That's the problem. again, to use a line from Bill Watts, if the Bucks or Kenny were in a men's locker room in wrestling 20 years ago, or in any probably professional sport, maybe even still to this day, they'd be whistling Stranger in Paradise. They think it's fun and games and everybody dances and plays together because this is community theater. No, motherfucker, you want to play a pro wrestler, you want to play a pro athlete on TV, then you got to put up with things that happen between pro athletes. They have fights, they get over it, and they fucking agree to work together and move on. So that's the issue here, is that one guy says, I'm in the wrestling business, and shit happens, and now we have an opportunity to capitalize on it with the potential biggest money drawing match that AEW has ever been able to put together. They did $1 million with Punk and fucking Page. They did $1 million with Punk and MJF. Imagine what they could do with, and I believe a couple other people are amenable to this match also, Punk and FTR versus the Buckaroos and Kenny. And you'd get all the AEW fans that would buy it anyway, and then you get the fucking fans that buy it because Punk's back, and then you get the people that say, you know what? Even though I don't really like that promotion and want to watch their pay-per-views, somebody might go off and punch somebody in the face for real, and I probably need to see that live. That's called taking advantage of fucking reality in a working fashion to draw money in the wrestling business. And that's what it seems like that the EVPs, for their own selfish interests, don't want to make Tony any of his money back that he's been paying them and Punk. And you think that fucking Kenny Olivier versus El Hijo del Vikingo would outdraw a 6-man between the EVPs and Punk and FTR on pay-per-view with this fucking history? Fuck you.
No, the match that people are pitching is Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay.
Oh, it's the same thing with a fucking shorter name. Who gives two flying shits? It's a mark match for the audience that already watches and buys everything they do. And most wrestling fans are going, here we got another goddamn case of competitive parkour.
Do you think the Bucks and Omega would dismiss this, turn this down, refuse it, whatever it may be, if there weren't guaranteed contracts in AEW? And now, of course, everyone wants to be guaranteed they're going to make money. WWE has their downside guarantee. But if you're guaranteed a flat amount of money, besides merchandise, you don't have to care about if this house will do good or not. You're still going to get paid the same thing.
Yeah, which is really what led to a lot of guys' malaise in the wrestling business when they first came in a while back. But in this 30 years ago, you know, guys automatically, especially in WCW, were like, Vince had the right idea. I'll give you a minimum, but you can make more than that if you fucking get the spot and work hard. Whereas everybody in WCW knew we're just going to make our salary, so we'll just fucking manipulate this to our own purposes. But again, I honestly think that all three of those fucking knuckleheads would take less money if they get their entrance music and their custom-made belts so that they can have championship titles with their friends and do their matches with their kids they like. I think they'd take less money. Of course, they've never told Tony that. But think about this. He's paid these three more money than they've ever seen in their lives and hired family members and friends as well.
Oh, yeah.
Family members and friends of every single one of them.
That's right.
And for that, they get a chance to actually be part of what may be the biggest money match they could put together. But they're scared that he's going to beat them up for real, and they know they can't do anything about it again. And they're pissed, and their feelings are hurt. Their feelings are hurt. They're so hurt. Fuck your fucking feelings. If I'm paying you $1 million or whatever the fuck, I don't give a fuck about your feelings. Your feelings are being soothed by my $1 million.
Well, Jim, before we go too much further, I should bring this up because this is, again, how shit gets going. Deadspin put up an article earlier today. CM Punk is gaslighting AEW.
What?
This article was retweeted by Brandon Cutler,
Okay.
who wrote Someone Gets It. So here you have someone who is only in AEW because he's the longtime stooge or friend, whatever you want to call it. He's their stooge. He always has been.
He went to grade school with them. Not even high school. He went to grade school with them. Brandon Cutlet has a job on a national television wrestling promotion because he went to school with some of the guys.
And he was the guy who, on their behalf, attacked Jim Ross a few years ago when he made a comment about all the dives, and here he is.
Yeah.
Apparently this tweet has already been taken down.
Boy, I'm glad all these sumbitches know how to take their tweets down. I don't really know how to do that. I just let them hang out there, but they get bad feelings about them real quick.